I wasn't watching him out of curiosity. This wasn't a hobby. I was hired. The instructions were simple. Sit in the car, do not interact, do not intervene, document everything. The house was ordinary. 2 floors, warm lights, a man alone in his living room, unaware. Tonight was my first assignment, and I had no idea what would happen if I stopped watching. I had done surveillance before. Cheating spouses, insurance claims, missing pets, jobs where nothing ever really happened. This one was different from the start. No client name, no background file, just an address and a time window. Observe, record, stay invisible, and above all, do not stop watching. The man followed a routine. Slow movements, careful gestures, like every action had been repeated 100 times before. He checked the front door. Once, then again. After that, he sat on the couch, facing the television, but the screen stayed dark. I checked the time on the dashboard clock. 22:17 Uhr. Inside, the man leaned back on the couch. He wasn't watching television. He wasn't on his phone. He was just sitting there, hands on his knees, staring ahead as if he were waiting for something to begin. At 22:19, the man turned his head. Slowly. Deliberately. Not toward the television. Not toward the door. He looked straight at the window. Straight through the glass. Straight toward my car. And for a second, I was sure he wasn't just looking outside. He was looking at me. I didn't move. I told myself it was coincidence. People glance outside all the time. Cars pass, lights shift, reflections lie. Still, his eyes didn't wander, didn't blink, didn't search. They stayed fixed, steady, focused like he was confirming something he already knew. I lowered the camera for a second and looked at the house with my own eyes. Same position, same posture, same stare. When I raised the camera again, the framing was perfect, too perfect, like he had adjusted himself for the lens. That's when I felt it. I wasn't observing anymore. I was being acknowledged. I looked away for a moment, just long enough to rub my eyes, to breathe, to reset. When I focused on the house again, everything looked the same. The lights, the window, the man. Then I realized what had changed. He was closer to the glass. Not pressed against it, not obviously moving, just close enough that I couldn't tell whether he had stepped forward or if he had always been that near. I stayed perfectly still. Inside the house, the man didn't move either. No wave, no reaction, no signal that he knew what he was doing. But the longer we remained like that, the more wrong it felt. People don't hold eye contact that long with a stranger in the dark, unless they're waiting for something. The man finally moved, not away from the window, not toward the door. He reached behind him, toward the wall, and the living room light went out. Instantly, the window turned into a dark mirror. I could still see his outline, but not his face. And now I was staring at my own reflection, right where his eyes had been. The glass no longer felt like a barrier. With the lights off, the house lost its depth. No room, no furniture, no distance. Just a dark shape standing where the man had been. I leaned forward without realizing it, trying to separate reflection from figure. That's when I understood the problem. I couldn't tell anymore which side of the window I was on. My camera adjusted automatically. Night mode engaged with a soft click, pulling detail out of the darkness that my eyes couldn't. The silhouette sharpened, edges clearer, depth false. Whatever stood behind the glass wasn't closer. It was flatter, like it belonged to the window itself, not the room behind it. I checked the camera feed, then the house, then the feed again. They didn't match. The shape on the screen was slightly delayed, like a reflection reacting a fraction too late. I moved my head. The silhouette didn't. That's when it hit me. The camera wasn't recording the man anymore. It was recording something else. I lowered the camera completely. No screen, no feed. Just the house in front of me. The silhouette was still there. When I raised the camera again, it reappeared, but not in the same position. It had shifted sideways, as if it were trying to align itself with where the lens expected it to be. My phone vibrated in the cup holder. The sound felt impossibly loud in the quiet car. No call. No notification banner. Just a single message from an unknown number. I didn't open it right away, because the silhouette at the window reacted first. It tilted just slightly, as if it had heard the vibration too. I opened the message. Just 3 words. Good, you're watching. My stomach tightened. I hadn't replied. I hadn't confirmed anything. Yet the silhouette straightened, as if the message had been addressed to both of us. For the first time, it wasn't facing the window anymore. It was facing me. Another message appeared before I could type anything. No vibration this time. No sound at all. Just text already waiting on the screen. Do not interact. I froze. Those were the exact words from my briefing, the exact phrasing. I hadn't told anyone what the instructions were, yet someone or something was reminding me what my role was supposed to be. I didn't reply. I kept my eyes on the phone, waiting for something else to appear. Typing dots, a follow-up, anything. Nothing came. Outside the windshield, the street looked unchanged. Parked cars, wet asphalt, distant lights. But the silence felt deliberate, like a pause left there on purpose, as if I was being given time to decide whether I was going to obey. I glanced back at the house. From this angle, the window was barely visible, a dark rectangle between others just like it. No movement, no light. If I hadn't been watching it moments before, I could have convinced myself nothing was there at all. That's when my phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a countdown. The screen lit up by itself. No numbers, no explanation. Just a thin bar slowly emptying from right to left. I didn't know what would happen when it reached 0. The message didn't say. Outside, the rain started again. Light at first, tapping the windshield in uneven intervals. I realized then what the countdown was really for. It wasn't measuring time. It was measuring how long I could keep watching. I looked back at the house again. One of the windows was lit. Not the living room, not the one I'd been watching. A different floor, a different room. I hadn't seen that light turn on. There was no movement, no shadow crossing the glass. It was just on. And somehow I knew it hadn't been a second ago. I checked the address on my assignment. Same street, same number. There was no note about a second resident, no mention of another floor being occupied. The light upstairs stayed perfectly still, as if it had always been there. But my camera feed told a different story. It didn't show that window at all, like it didn't exist. I raised the camera again. The screen flickered, adjusted, recalibrated. The house appeared exactly as before. Ground floor dark. Living room empty. No silhouette. No movement. The upstairs window, the one clearly lit with my own eyes, was missing. Not dark, not blurred, just not there. Like the house had been built differently inside the camera. I zoomed in. The light upstairs wasn't warm anymore. It was flat, even, like it wasn't coming from a lamp at all. No curtains moved, no shadow crossed the glass. It looked less like a room being used and more like a space being kept active. My phone buzzed again. A single line appeared. That window isn't for you. I checked the briefing again. No mention of an upstairs window. No instruction about alternate viewpoints. Nothing about reassignment. The message hadn't warned me to look away. It had told me that window wasn't for me, which meant it was for someone else. Someone who wasn't in the car and wasn't on the street. someone who was already watching from inside. I scanned the street. No parked vans, no silhouettes between the trees, no movement behind the neighboring windows. If someone else was observing, they weren't doing it from outside. The upstairs light stayed on, perfectly steady. Then I noticed something that made my throat tighten. The light wasn't facing the street. It was facing inward, toward the rest of the house. The countdown on my phone jumped. Not forward, backward. The bar refilled slightly, as if time had been given back, a reward. I hadn't moved. I hadn't interacted. I had simply understood where not to look. Another message appeared. Good, you're learning. And for the first time, the light upstairs dimmed not off, just lower, like something had stepped away from the glass. I stayed where I was, engine off, seatbelt still fastened, hands resting on my legs, forcing myself not to fidget. The house looked calm again, almost normal. Just another building on a quiet street after midnight. But now I knew better. Whatever was inside wasn't reacting to movement. It wasn't triggered by sound or light. It responded to attention, to understanding. And the longer I watched the right things, the more the house seemed to settle, like a system stabilizing under observation. Minutes passed without incident. The upstairs light held steady, neither bright nor dim, balanced, like a needle resting at the center. My phone stayed silent. No new messages, no movement in the countdown. For a moment, I let myself believe this was the point of the job. Not to stop anything, not to fix it, just to be present long enough for whatever was inside the house to remain contained. That's when I noticed the problem. The countdown hadn't stopped. It was still moving, just much slower than before. The bar drained a fraction, paused, then drained again. Whatever balance I thought I'd reached was temporary. Observation wasn't a solution. It was a delay, and sooner or later something was going to run out before I did. My chest started to ache from breathing too shallow. I realized I had been sitting unnaturally still, afraid that even a small movement might count as a mistake. The house didn't react. The light upstairs didn't flicker. But inside the car, things felt tighter, the air heavier, like the space around me was shrinking by degrees. I understood then that watching wasn't free. It was costing me something, even if I couldn't yet tell what. My eyes burned, not from the dark, from refusing to look away. I tried blinking slower, deliberately, measuring each second my gaze wasn't fixed on the house. Nothing reacted. No warning, no correction. But the countdown dipped again, a little more this time. That's when I understood the rule I'd never been told. It wasn't about watching continuously. It was about never fully stopping. I tested it. I shifted my focus not away from the house, but away from the upstairs window. The countdown stuttered. For half a second, the bar stopped draining, the light didn't change, the street stayed quiet. So I held that balance, watching the house, but not the place that wanted to be watched most. It felt wrong, like standing on a ledge you're not supposed to notice. The message came without warning. No sound, no vibration. It simply replaced the countdown. That's enough. The upstairs light went out, not gradually, not dimming. Gone. The house returned to its original shape, dark windows, quiet rooms, nothing demanding attention. But my phone didn't reset. A new line appeared underneath. You can stop now. I stayed where I was for a long time after that. No new messages, no countdown, no lights coming back on. The house looked empty again, harmless, ordinary. Eventually, I turned the key and drove away. The job was over. At least, that's what the file said. But even now, when I close my eyes, I can still feel the moment I almost stopped watching. And I understand why they never tell us what happens when we do.